Nay, mamangkot ako. Sino gani aton ngalan?
Rubita, si Marino.
Marino. Pila,
Ganito
pila na aton edad, Nay?
91.
91. Bo, grabe nga edad, Nay, no? Pila ang imo edad sang nag-abot ang hapon?
9 to 10 years old.
Ay, abo, grabe, Nay ba?
Grade 4 ako.
Grade 4 ka.
Grade 4.
Nay, inang diin ikaw nga lugar sang nag-abot ang hapon?
Dalaan sa amon. Sa muhon.
Sa Muhon?
Oo, sa muhon. Pag-abot sa hapon niya, amo ito nga lagi na ang tanan. Dito, ay ko nakaupo sa ako.
Wala ka.
Kanan.
Diin kamu nalagyo sa pag-abot?
Pag-agit sa kapukan, pag-landing nila, kaya nanawag sa amon nga, bago na kami nakihapon, ala na, nagdalagan nila ako kami nadagan kami sa Halang
Sa Ari.
Sa Baybay.
Sa Baybay. Bali part man agapon sang Putonay?
Oo.
Okay. Nay, pagkatapos ang naglanding sila, kag nakaplastar na kamo to sa Alegre, makakaon man kamo insakto.
Nagkakaon man kami, nagkatigang man kami, ibang balay ko, maging sinalog na lang kami, natagaanan nila sa tanon. Luway ko lang nga sa ano, ito nakita ko to, ang chorizo na dinakon ng tao, yung kutagain, nakot si Maay. Pag sila lang nahag-hag, yung paamon, yun lang na, kilala ko mo.
Nay, may ara, bala ka mo parinti o kun parinti na nga nadakpan o kun ginpatay sang hapon?
Buhay.
Wala. Maayo man to gani na.
Ako magulang nga dito sa Arosila, nadakpan siya sa kapon.
Oo.
Manubin na bitsura.
Oo.
Kung nga sabi nila kung isliga, para may isa kakilala, nga naghambal mo sila, lambot na sila sa may bawaan.
Oo.
Kaya hindi nadakpon sila, hindi na sila soldado. Yung nagabantay na siya sa Arosila.
Nasalaan
mo nila eh.
Oo.
Malayo ka natutulan na kami sa kanilang buyaw.
Oo. Nay, pagkatapos binakaplastar ka mo to sa Alegre, no? Kaya nang pinalagyo na tong tanan-tanan pagkatapos yun na bala nga nakapatindog na kamo to balay or nakahimo kamo dito balay?
Walang balay kundi ang mga dawat.
Hamong-hamong lang.
Gabi, ang balabag nila mo, ngunit pasilungan lang kami.
Hamong-hamong lang.
Tulungkuan lang kami sa tanan, tapos sa amon, lakatan nila.
Grabe, no?
Sa uli, sa uli. Nang hapon na, mayo ko na anak ko akong amay. Makita sa amon, tayo, namangkot sa no. Ito, nga kita nilang apo. Sa Alegre. Maging kantuan na kami.
Oo. Tidiin sila yan ay how?
Dito na sila yan sa Lambuyaw.
Ay, abalayo. Nagsimpa kayo sila yan. Oo.
Dito na lang po. So, wrestling na, gusto mo na nakata.
Ang ginkuha ya ikaw?
Ang ginkuha nila. At nalupod ang pamilya nga ginakdan ko.
Oo.
Wala ka nila dua.
Oo.
Nang nawal sabi na magwanda ko lang sabi.
Ang pamilya to na nga ginupdan mo, ginkuha, nag-upod naman sila sa inyo.
Magdala na mo na. Magdala ulit na kami lang kasama na sa kalsada. Lang tao kami nga malinong.
Oo.
Tabo kami sa suba. Suba. Magsab kami suba. Nagkami sa mga tangpang.
Oo.
Buwa kami sa umaha.
Nag-shortcut. Ganito mo.
Pagwa naman sa uma, lapay pa na nagadilaga. Ganilaga ng kami mo. Adlok mo kami.
Oo eh.
Ganilaga sa aeroplano. Nagapantuhan sa among motibo.
Di, sa banta mo binay, mga pila kabilog ang nakita mo nga hapon. Mga labot sila shin kabilog.
Ako mapo lang nga nakita ko kalabo.
Sang naglanding gid sila.
Landing. Anong landing? Islawat ako kakita ya. Alis ulit pagkalay kanan na.
Oo.
Nakita ko nabi ang tawai na sila bilang paminta.
Oo.
Ang lakay ko kay baligya sila ng bugas. sa karon na.
Oo.
Dadalaya ko na ya.
Ang karo na anong gaguyod? Baka kung tabago?
Baka.
Baka.
Dalaya ko sa city.
Oo.
Wala nga ako na palapit sa inyo. Wala na nagsasangayot lang ko ng aga, may hapon.
Tibot sila ko nang naabtan mo na yung hapon nang mabuot iya. Kamusta, sir, ang gira din sa Iloilo City? Gaano din kalala?
Well, I'd say nga there were periods nga wala gira. And that's for the most part of the wartime, no? Wala sang conflict. The real shooting engagement happens at the beginning for a very brief, really fast time. And then 1945. So in between 1942 and 1945, you didn't really have much going on.
Sino, sir, ang nag-lead sa depensa dali sa Iloilo City?
There were I would say there were several leaders. I'd say there were three of them. So the first one, most naturally, is Macario Peralta, Junior, and Macario Peralta was the officer, highest ranking officer, who said nga hindi siya mag-surrender together with the Americans, and so he became kind of like the figurehead of not just the Philippine military in its infancy, but also the USFA, right? And because they remained intact, they operated as they would have if the Americans had not surrendered.
Tuod gid man, sir, nga before pa sa war, may mga Japanese gid man dali nga nagaulog para sa mga stores there or shops dali sa Iloilo City.
Yes, they were. The one of I would say siguro the largest number of migrants, Asian migrants to the Philippines during that time was not the Chinese, but actually the Japanese. So see my advisor, Ricardo Jose, wrote extensively about the start of the war, and in it he describes everyone from your photographer to your sorbetero to your sastre. They were all Japanese. Some of them were planted, and then the vast majority of them were conscripted. So let's say you were a big businessman, maybe CEO of your own company, kabut mo dire. When the Japanese military came, you were given a rank corresponding to your status. And so let's say if you were a sastre, if you were the CEO of a sastre company business dire, then your job would be to repair uniforms, make uniforms during the war. But you would be given the rank of a field grade officer, something like maybe a major or a lieutenant colonel or something like that. But to all the Ilonggos who saw them, Ilonggos would probably say nga, ano na siya, nang planted na siya, kahit nawablaw, officer na siya sa bong. That is true to an extent. There were people who were planted, to gather intel. But then you have the vast majority again, conscript lang sila.
So, ano man, sir, ang kapanunog sa aton? Hapon or ang kapwa to, sir, na Pinoy or Ilonggo?
Both of them did. On one hand, si si Femo adopted the scorched earth policy. So that is, you deny the enemy use of facilities. Very one interesting story that was told sa akon about 15 years back siguro was the case of Nili Garden. So it's a Nili Garden, very iconic sa Subong, no? But apparently, isang amutong nga time, one of the heroines of the Philippine Revolution, ni Patrocinio Gamboa, you might have heard of her. So she was the one who smuggled the flag out of the occupied lines across American checkpoints. Right, so she is an elderly woman, Subong, pretty plump. And then the directive is given, niya, no? Bakwait ka mo tanan. Halin ka mo kay maabot ng Japanese. Tapos, we have to put your house to the torch. Kaya otherwise, Nili Garden, fantastic place. Laban-laban magiging Japanese headquarters, diba? Or residence ni General so-and-so, diba? Okay. So, sige, deny ta. Sunugon ta. The family members pleaded na hindi pagsunugon. But the guerrillas were already there. They kind of like, they had their gasoline, they had, they had the Molotovs, etc. So, in the midst of the discussion, in the midst of the argument, nag-abot ang hapon. Right? In the midst of this, nag-abot ang advance parties ang hapon. So, nagkabukingan, nagtiruhay. And by some miracle, si Patrocinio Gamboa, this very old lady who was really plump, they managed to get her over the wall and escape.
Sige, sir. Thank you, Yuda. Diin diri sir sa city ang ginhimo gid man sir ng garrison.
Well, the University of the Philippines main building was commandeered. Right? That became a garrison. But other than that, there were also these kind of like satellite places for officers. The Masonic Lodge became one of the branches of the JMA, Japanese Military Administration. So the garrison itself, housing the troops, would have been here, but all your officers who were running the city would have been there. Plaza Libertad, right? You can tell because it's the building with the Masonic symbol outside. And then for every district, for every town, mayara sila nga daw satellite niya, no? Like they probably picked a house close to the center, and that's where they deployed their officers. So one of them would have been the one I mentioned earlier sa inyo sa Molo. Na naging target na siya, bale. Pero I may go ang nigo some other place. Okay.
Sir, sana officer ka paano sir na-declare tapos na ang gira dali sa LBC?
Officially, when the Japanese surrendered, I'm trying to remember the date, can't seem to place it, but it might have been about May 1945, somewhere around that. They were given the privilege, bale, of formal military surrender. And of course, for the Japanese, the other alternative was you commit suicide. You fight to the last man, you commit suicide. I don't know, you strap yourself with mines or bombs, and then you blow yourself up. You take as many of the enemy with you. And you see that at least for the case of a large number of them in the Philippines, probably ratio-wise larger in Iloilo, they surrendered. They rescinded this order, bale. So they surrendered intact. And one fascinating thing about that particular surrender, the two places na siya, mayara sila nga nag-surrender sila sa Tireng, mayara man nga nag-surrender sila sa Maasin lapit sa dam. When the Japanese surrendered, they came in, they went down, a full military parade. No, intact ang honor, full military parade. In the very same way, siguro that the guerrillas kind of marched into the city with information, gisi-gisi mga bayo, pero information. Nakip nilang honor nila. Now, another thing that is very interesting about it is normally, in other places of surrender in the Philippines, wala ginaupod ang mga Pinoy. Wala sila ginaupod because they probably deemed they were too unprofessional, too emotional. Pero in the Japanese surrender in the Philippines, in Iloilo, ara ang panay guerrillas. because they were regarded as an intact military unit. So they were not perceived bali as unprofessionals, right? So ano na tawag? The Americans had enough confidence in them that they would be able to control themselves, and behave accordingly in the midst of this formal military proceedings. Those two of the unique things that you find with the Japanese surrender. And after that, formally, that's the end of the war.